Being joined by the CEO of Kimpact's Development Initiative, Mr. Bukola Idowu. Thank you so much indeed for joining us this morning.
How are you? Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we do understand you're very much in the heat of preparations for the election, so we appreciate you making our time to speak to us. Yesterday, you put together what you call the pre-election security assessment meeting. What were some of the highlights or some of the issues that were raised during that assessment meeting?
Yes, thank you very much. I think what we released yesterday is about the security environment as it relates to the election in Osun, and it's about the highlight. Basically, is to trace what has been happening in the Osun state preparation for the election for the past 12 months, and one of the things we discover is that from the past 12 months till 1st of August, there have been 79 cases of violence, and then 29 people have died in the cases of that election violence. Please note that the violence we are talking about is totally different from the normal criminal activity, but this is specific to election-related violence. And 79, which is a bit huge. And then the finding went further.
Sorry, did you say
also identify?
Mr. Bukola?
I can hear you.
Yeah, did you say 1st August? 1st August 2026 or 1st August 2025?
So it's for the past 12 months from 1st of August 2025 to 1st of August 2026.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was 79 cases of election violence, which is huge if you have to look at it in terms of escalation of violence that pertain to election. And one of the things we also did, the finding went further to also identify 22 local governments that are high risk in terms of hotspots for this election. And we eventually have to call on the security agencies to make sure that they deploy or their deployment in those local governments are top notch, are strategic to be able to mitigate the issue of violence on election day, even before the election day. Now, one of the things we also emphasize is that what this trajectory of violence has caused in Osun is that the impact may be reduced voter turnout, which will not be a good thing for that election. And these are some of the things we highlighted in our finding that the authority and other stakeholders will need to take action on.
All right. Now, a couple of issues you've raised. Number one, the number of incidents that have been recorded in the last 1 year. And I want to take you up on the second issue that you raised about 22 local governments that you have identified as high-risk areas, as it were. There are 30 local governments in Osun State. If you've identified 22 of them as high-risk areas, that's almost the entire state. So my question to you would be, what informed the categorizing of those 22 local governments at high-risk areas? What are some of the factors that you looked at to come to that conclusion? And what are your recommendations to the security agencies and, of course, to INEC?
So, number one is a deep research, a research that a survey was conducted with Osun citizens across the 30 local governments. 3,726 of them responded. That is a huge sampling method, if you ask me. And number two, we met stakeholders for validation and at the same time our tracking over the years. So, I mean, when you look at an issue where we have been tracking since August last year, and then we now begin to draw pattern, you need to begin to draw pattern. So, and when you now see that we are at the area that have been these cases of violence are beginning to happen the more. In fact, I can tell you that from that 79 cases of violence, you'll find that about 80% of them happened within Osogbo and Olonda local government. That tells you something. That tells you it's already an hotspot, because if two local governments accommodate 80% of the violence that happened. That tells you something. Then number two, you also have to look at the activity of actors, political actors. There are factors that make a place an hotspot. And number one, you have to look at the activity of actors. You have to look at history of electoral violence. You have to look at voter turnout and PVC collected, because you are likely going to see violence erupting in a place with a low voter turnout and low PVC collected, because they don't have the numbers to turn things around. And that is how some of the political parties, at times, politicians think. But when you look at places that their numbers can actually swing the vote, then they concentrate more effort on that place, and that place become a battleground. So again, you also have to look at a situation that in analyzing your battleground, or you analyze your hotspot, you also have to look at where is the candidate coming and where is their deputy coming. So when you have, as it is today, you have three major political parties, the ADC, the Accord, and the APC candidates. All of them come from Osun West. So automatically, they tells you that the other political part, the other senatorial district is where they want to go and jostle for votes to be able to take over and say, look, we lock this place down, plus my own base. So, and again, you also have to look at the activity of security agencies. There are some of those local government that we identify that security agency presence there is next to zero. So then again, you look at how Osun borders close to 6 states: Oyo, Ogun, Ondo, Kwara, and so you have to look at and some other states, and even in some part of Kwara and Kogi. So you have to look at, okay, when you look at the border, and will this be able to make other people who are not indigenous of Osun State to moving into the state? So there are a lot of factors we put together, and I am happy that as soon as we present this to the security agency, it's also tallies also with some of their findings. Only that they also have to look at some of the local government who have highlighted to add to those ones they have highlighted on their own. Again, you also have to look at difficult terrain. There are some local government that have difficult terrain. For instance, Ife East, have some difficult terrain, hard to reach area. So those hard to reach area also mean something in terms of, so what if things happen there, and we have seen that things have happened in those particular places, then it takes longer time for response to come from the security agency or from INEC itself. Then the last thing that we also look at is the activity and the preparation of INEC. So how is the preparation of INEC going to be a potential risk in the election? So for instance, in a particular location where it is hard to reach, then if the logistics of INEC is not in top notch, and as of 10-11, they've not started the election, materials have not gotten to that place, that is already a potential risk or potential for violence. So these are a whole lot of factors put together scientifically to also be able to arrive at this 22. And I must also say that INEC or Osun State also released a finding, and they identify over 300, I think around 350 locations, that are of high risk to them too. And they pin it down to location. But that tells you something, because if you are looking at 22 local government out of 30, and it looks like, it's more or less like a statewide thing, INEC that released 350 locations, and Osun have 332 wards. That is telling you something, that it is an average of every ward in Osun State that is to INEC that carry the potential risk. So, and that is why Osun election, is one of the things that we have categorized as probably the risk level is a bit high, and the security agency need to move in and see how they douse tension, how they are professional, because there is likelihood of violence if care is not taken.
All right. Thank you very much for that breakdown, Mr. Bukola. Let me take you back to the issue of the political actors. These 79 incidents that you were able to identify as election-related violence between August last year and August this year. At the very center of election violence are political actors, or what you might political parties. Your research and your findings, was he able to pin down exactly those who are responsible? Because, I mean, like you identify, at least 3 major parties who are taking part in these elections. So, I mean, is it the APC who is fueling the violence? Is it the Accord Party? Is it some of any other political party? Or do we have an entirely different set of elements who are fueling this violence in Osun State?
So basically, what our finding has done is that we have not been able to pin it down to to political party, but we have been able to pin it down to perpetrators. And our classification of perpetrators are party members or political party. And then we have the court group are also contributing to this because they also were used. The road transport union workers, the transport union are also perpetrator. The security agency are also perpetrators. So this give us the breakdown. For instance, we have seen election violence perpetrated by security agencies. And so that was documented. Then transport union, because they are factionalized along party lines, they also contribute to this election violence. Because we have seen a situation where a faction of the transport union are loyal to APC, the other party loyal to Accord. And in fact, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had a clash in Osogbo, they had a clash in Ife. So that tells you that they are also actors. Then you see the court too, the political party using the secret court, the court group to also perpetrate violence. That is another one. Then you now look at the political parties themselves in terms of the party members themselves fighting and then causing this violence. Now, what we have seen is that in fact, 99%, and I repeat, 99% of the violence is between 2 major political parties. And that is Accord and APC. So, though what I am now saying, the remaining political party, does that mean they don't want to fight? But one of the things that report also highlighted is that the huge amount of resources going into election violence, because it takes resources to be able to hire thugs and harm them. It takes resources to be able to hire the transport union and harm them, the court group. So the other political party, because they lack that resources too, that is why, the news from them are actually lower, but not because they don't have capacity to commit violence. But again, when you go to that APC and the Accord, these are the 2 parties that dominate the electoral violence space in Osun State. And again, you will have seen, according to our interaction even with the security agency, they have made an arrest from both parties. In fact, 80% of the people they have arrested are also from those 2 political parties, APC and Accord. So that is exactly what is going on now. So one thing that this is also telling us, and that we have tested across other elections, is that because political parties that have the resources also channel these resources to arming thug and in some instances foment trouble. So we need to begin to look at what do we need to begin to do. Number one is that we need our security agencies, they have to be proactive and not reactive. Because what we have seen these days is that proactiveness is no longer there. People keep reacting. Now, what has happened is that violence will have taken place, then 1 hour later, then you now begin to see siren coming and they begin to make an arrest. But the modern election policing is gathering intelligence, and you are being proactive and nip it at the bud before it happens. And that is one of the things we are advocating for, because they need to infiltrate all the political parties, get information, nip things at the bud before it happens. Because the implication of violence, aside people dying, is that you are likely going to, what is done is that, election violence now is not strategic because it has become a form of rigging. Now, when I said a form of rigging, because you see people perpetrating violence in the opposition stronghold, and what does that mean is that when you put fear in that particular place, then the people that are supposed to come out on election, they are not coming out. Automatically, what you have done is that you have reduced the vote of your opponent. You have done what is called voter suppression. You have suppressed votes in that particular place. So these are the things that are involved. Then the law says when there is violence in any political, in any polling unit, the law outrightly says it's cancellation. So what politicians are doing on election day is that protect their own territory and commit trouble in another polling unit so that you can cancel it and reduce the vote of your opponent. So we have to be strategic. We have to be proactive in our approach. And I also think that beyond that, generally, I think Nigeria is sitting on a keg of gunpowder because there is proliferation of light arms everywhere. When you see the kind of guns that the court group are carrying, the transport union are carrying, fomenting trouble and shooting, then you should be asking yourself, how soon, what does it take the security agency to mop up this light arm? And this is where we are. And I think we have to do more in this regard. Because the election is just a subset of the generality of the security situation.
Thank you so much. Just a whole lot of issues. I wish we had a lot of time. At the center of all of this is, at the end of the day, to have an election where Osun people are able to go out and exercise their franchise. Now, we're seeing deployments from security agencies, about 15,000 police personnel, 100 EFCC operatives who have been deployed, NSCDC officials, and even this morning, we're hearing that soldiers have taken over the guarding of the INEC headquarters in Osogbo. When you look at all of this, where do we draw the line between having so much security presence as to communicate, that sense of peace and tranquility, and the point where it looks like a war zone, that voters are not even able to come out anymore? It's now looking so intimidating, as it were.
So, and that is one of the reasons we are saying this. You see, there is a thin line between you doing your show of force and then scaring people away. You are not building the confidence, you are scaring people away. You see, election is a civic affair. So when you do your show of force and in the broad daylight, because election is a civil affair, and then you begin to parade tanks and say you want to do show of force. One of the impressions, the psychological impression you are giving people is that election is a war, and that is a wrong narrative. So in modern election policing, of course, I have gone to the US to observe election, Ghana and some other countries. You don't even see this kind of deployment. In fact, they don't even lock down. Now, because the modern policing is more proactive. Now, days before the election, you are able to isolate actors that could foment trouble. You are able to curtail it. You are able to do most of this. So, and then at that time, you even have, in fact, if most of the security are on plain clothes, it actually helps because you are not scaring anybody away. And then you are at alert, and then you are able to respond wherever you need to respond. But here, you take over the street of Osun State, for instance, with AK-47, with tanks they have not seen, and then with hooded personnel. Now, then you have communicated that, look, is there going to be a terror attack? Is there going to be anything? So when you look at some of the obstacle election and you begin to see low voter turnout, this is one of the things contributing to it. And that is why some people have said, look, over militarization of our election is not good for democracy. But having said that, the security agency also, their own point of view is to say, look, when we are on ground and people see us that we are on ground, then it scares the bad people away. The good people have nothing to fear about. But this narrative over the years have not helped matter. I think what we need to do is to be proactive. One, I have mentioned that. Number two is to also talk about neutrality when institutions are not neutral. These are the causes of election violence. Number one, when the security agency are one-sided, arresting one set of political party and leaving the others. And then you have the impression that the security agency are working for a particular political party. Then these are the things that fuel violence in an election. So it is not about you deploy a whole lot. The perception of neutrality, you can't take it away without you can't take the perception of neutrality away with your deployment. No, people must actually see that you are neutral. Then we are where we are today because past election violence perpetrators that have been arrested, nothing has been done to them. So then you see, okay, the people that are arrested in 2018 Osun election, the people arrested in 2022 Osun election, what has happened to them? How many of them have become an ex-convict? Now, I'm even talking about let's even go to 2023 general election. The people arrested in Lagos, the people arrested in Abuja, the people arrested in Kefi. After the election, they went scot-free. So, and then you are now saying that that is not enough incentive for people to perpetrate violence? No. But when people are punished, when somebody has become an ex-convict because of election violence, then you now find out that, look, people begin to stop all this. So you can't stop violence with huge deployment that scares people away. As a matter of fact, the credibility of that election will be in doubt because an election that less than 30% of the registered voter participate. It's not the credibility threshold is very low. It's very low. Look at Nigeria election. These are conversations we need to have. The police, the security agency must look at another means of deployment of securing the state in a way that will not scare people away. And I want to say, you just talked about, just lastly, in 30 seconds, you just talked about EFCC, but as of today, civil defense has deployed over 10,000 to join police. Police deployment, that 15,000 you quoted was advanced team. New set of people are arriving today. So when you now look at a state and then you flood the place with DSS and everybody with over 40,000 personnel, and that is why at the national election in January, do you have luxury of policing each state, 36 states like that? So we need to begin to have that conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bukola Idowu, for your expert insights on these issues. And we want to wish you all the very best in your coverage of the Osun State elections. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. CEO, Kimpact Development Initiative, Bukola Idowu, speaking to us on security challenges and preparations ahead of the August 15 Osun State governorship elections.